I'm standing outside a glass conference room on the 14th floor. My security badge still warm in my hand, when Kelsey Barnes slides a single piece of paper across the polished table. The header reads, "Termination of employment, effective immediately." And at the bottom, one signature, Vaughn Mercer, CEO. I don't even get to sit down. I don't get a hello. I don't get an explanation. Kelsey, the HR director with her perfectly styled bob and neutral expression, says flatly, "The CEO has reviewed your performance summary. The decision is final." My throat closes. He's never even met me. She doesn't blink. The summary was comprehensive. We don't require face-to-face meetings for terminations. Behind her, through the glass wall, I can see my department head Brett Hutchins, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, watching. The smallest smirk plays at the corner of his mouth. He's been waiting for this. I try to speak, but my voice comes out thin and broken. What did I do wrong? Kelsey pushes a folder toward me. Performance issues, attitude concerns, it's all documented. Documented where? No one ever. Security will escort you to collect your personal items. Your final paycheck will be mailed. That's it. 22 years. Gone in 3 sentences. As 2 security guards appear in the doorway, I catch Brett's voice through the half-closed door behind me. He's talking to someone, voice smug and satisfied. She won't fight back. Women like her never do. My hands start shaking, not from fear, from rage. They take everything. My laptop, my access card, my keys to the supply closet, my company phone. They even make me surrender the little succulent plant on my desk, claiming it was purchased with company funds. I feel like a criminal. In the lobby, I have to walk past the reception desk where I've said good morning every day for over 2 decades. Past the elevators where I've stood with colleagues discussing weekend plans and project deadlines. People see me flanked by security. They stare for half a second, then quickly look away, terrified that whatever got me fired might be contagious. My chest burns with humiliation. My vision blurs. But what hurts worse than the stares is the one face I do see clearly. Olivia Chen, my work friend, the woman I've had lunch with 3 times a week for 5 years, is frozen by the coffee station. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with horror. Not for me, but for herself. She's terrified she'll be next. She doesn't say a word. She just turns and walks quickly toward the stairwell. Outside, I sit in my car in the parking garage for 30 minutes, unable to turn the key. My hands won't stop shaking. I reread the termination letter through tears. Reason for termination: performance deficiencies and attitude issues inconsistent with company values. Performance, attitude, vague, impossible to fight corporate language that means nothing and everything. My phone buzzes in my purse, a text from Olivia. "Diane, I'm so sorry. I heard the real reason Brett did this. Call me when you're alone." I stare at the message until the screen goes dark. Then I start the car and drive home, my entire world collapsing with every mile. Olivia calls me from her car 20 minutes later. I can hear the engine running, the click of her turn signal. She's driving somewhere she won't be overheard. "Diane, I can't believe they did this to you. Tell me what you heard." My voice is flat, numb. She takes a shaky breath. "Brett's been skimming the department budget for months, maybe longer. Fake consulting fees, double-billed invoices, vendors that don't exist. He's been treating the operating budget like his personal expense account." Ice water floods my veins. "How do you know?" "Because last week during the audit prep meeting, you asked one question. Just one. You said, 'Why is this invoice from VentureLink billed twice for the same deliverable?'" I remember. It was such a small thing. I wasn't accusing anyone. I was just doing my job, trying to make sure our numbers were clean before the auditors arrived. "That's it," Olivia continues, voice breaking. "That's your crime, Diane. You noticed." And Brett panicked. My stomach drops. "So he fired me?" "He told Kelsey you were creating a hostile work environment, that you were insubordinate and resistant to feedback. He said you were becoming unstable and he was worried about workplace safety." That's insane. I know, but Kelsey believed him. Or pretended to. And the CEO hates drama, so when Brett submitted the termination request with a 2-page summary, Vaughn signed it without asking questions. I close my eyes. The room spins. "Olivia, did Brett say anything else?" She's quiet for a long moment. When she speaks again, her voice is barely a whisper. "Diane, I think they're going to blame the missing money on you." I drive home in a fog. My hands grip the steering wheel so tight my knuckles go white. When I get to my apartment, I go straight to the bathroom and throw up. Fear and rage mixing like poison in my stomach. I sit on the cold tile floor, shaking, and try to think. They're not just firing me, they're setting me up. But then I remember something. I stand up, wipe my mouth, and walk to my home office. On the shelf above my desk is a stack of plain spiral notebooks, the kind you buy in bulk at office supply stores. I've kept them for years, not as some grand plan, just as a habit. Because when you're over 50 in corporate America, you stop trusting your memory alone. You start writing things down. I pull down the notebook from this fiscal year and flip through the pages. Meeting notes, email summaries, budget approvals, dates and times and initials. And there, on page after page, I see Brett's handwriting. BH approved, 3/12. Per BH, prioritize VentureLink contract. BH signed off on vendor extension. My hands are trembling, but this time it's not from fear. It's from clarity. Then I flip to a page from 2 months ago, and I see something that makes my breath catch. A line I'd forgotten I'd written, per Vaughn's office, weekly financial summaries to be sent directly to CEO for review. I stare at that line for a long time. Vaughn Mercer approved my termination. But he also requested financial oversight reports, which means he knew something was wrong. And he fired me anyway. I don't break into the office. I don't hack email accounts. I don't do anything reckless. I do exactly what the law allows. The next morning, I send a formal written request to HR for my complete personnel file. Every performance review, every complaint, every piece of documentation they used to justify my termination. It's my legal right under state employment law. I also request a copy of the performance summary that the CEO reviewed before signing my termination. Because if it exists, it can be examined. And if it doesn't exist, that's even more interesting. Kelsey replies within 2 hours, her email clipped and professional. Ms. Lawson, we will provide the materials we are legally required to provide within the statutory timeframe. I write back, matching her tone exactly. Thank you. I trust everything will be complete and accurate. I look forward to reviewing the documentation that supported such a significant decision. My hands are shaking as I hit send, but my voice, my written voice, is calm, steady. That night, my landline rings, a number I don't recognize. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. Diane Lawson? Yes? This is Evelyn Rourke. I don't know if you remember me. I worked in finance until 3 years ago. I do remember. Evelyn was let go suddenly, right before a big audit. There were rumors, but no one ever talked about it openly. I remember you, Evelyn. Her voice is tight, controlled. I heard what happened to you, and I need to tell you something. She pauses. They did the exact same thing to me. I meet Evelyn the next morning at a diner 40 minutes outside the city. She chose the location deliberately, far from anyone who might recognize us. She's older now, lines around her eyes that weren't there before. She looks tired in a way that goes deeper than lack of sleep. We order coffee. Neither of us touches it. They fired me the same way, Evelyn says, hands wrapped around her mug for warmth. Sudden termination, performance issues, no warnings, no write-ups, no progressive discipline, just a meeting with HR and security walking me out. What was the real reason? I questioned an expense report, a consulting fee that didn't match the contract terms. I sent one email to my supervisor asking for clarification. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. That was my mistake. Who was your supervisor? Brett Hutchins. My blood runs cold. Evelyn continues. He told HR I was difficult to work with, resistant to feedback, creating tension in the department. The CEO signed the termination based on Brett's summary. Vaughn never met with me, never asked for my side. I lean forward. Did you fight it? I tried, but I was 56, Diane. In this economy, I took the severance they offered, which wasn't much, and I signed the NDA. I needed the health insurance bridge until I qualified for Medicare. She looks at me with eyes that have seen this story before. But you're different. How? Because you weren't just in finance. You were the compliance liaison. You had access to both the budget oversight and the audit prep documentation. You could see the whole picture. She leans in close. That's why they needed you gone fast, Diane. Before you put it all together. My coffee has gone cold. I push it away. Evelyn, how much money are we talking about? She's quiet for a long moment. When I was there, At least 200,000, but that was 3 years ago. I feel the weight of what she's saying settle on my shoulders. This isn't just about me. This is a pattern. 2 days later, I receive a letter from the state unemployment office. My claim has been contested. Reason, terminated for misconduct. Misconduct, not performance. Not attitude. Misconduct, a word that can follow you for the rest of your career. A scarlet letter that makes you unemployable. I call Kelsey immediately. This says I was fired for misconduct. That's not what my termination letter said. Her voice is smooth, practiced. It's standard language for contested claims, Miss Lawson. Then change it, or provide documentation of the specific misconduct. The determination has been made based on the information provided to the state. What information? I was never accused of misconduct while I was employed. I was never written up. I was never. If you disagree with the finding, you can file an appeal. I close my eyes and force my voice to stay level. Kelsey, if there was misconduct serious enough to contest my unemployment, put it in writing. I want specific incidents, dates, and documentation. There's a pause, a long one. When she speaks again, her voice has an edge I've never heard before. You should stop poking the bear, Diane. I hang up before I say something I'll regret. Then I sit in my quiet apartment and realize what's happening. They're not defending a termination decision. They're building a new story. A worse story. And if I don't stop it now, it's going to destroy me. I find Miss Patel through a referral from a friend who went through a wrongful termination case 5 years ago. Her office is in a modest building downtown. No fancy lobby, no expensive art. Just competence and honesty. She's in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately puts me at ease. I tell her everything. The termination, the unemployment contest, the shifting accusations, Evelyn's story. She takes notes in careful, precise handwriting. When I finish, she sets down her pen and looks at me directly. Ms. Lawson, I don't promise miracles, I promise process. We're going to do 3 things. First, we document every timeline meticulously. When things happened, who said what the written record shows. Second, we force them to provide specifics. Vague accusations can't stand up to specific questions. Third, we watch who panics when we start asking those questions. I nod, feeling something solid forming in my chest for the first time since this started. What do you need from me? Everything you have. Emails, notes, performance reviews, your notebook. We build the truth, piece by piece. That night, I tell my daughter Claire what's happening. I've been putting it off, not wanting to worry her, but she deserves to know. She's 26, working in tech, sharp as a whip. She listens to the whole story without interrupting. When I finish, she's quiet for a long moment. Then she says something that makes the air shift in my small apartment. Mom, do you remember Uncle Mark? The one you helped years ago when he was going through his divorce? I blink. Of course. He works with Harold Chen now. My heart stops. Harold, as in Harold Chen, the board chair? Claire nods. Mom, Uncle Mark owes you. Maybe it's time to collect. I haven't spoken to Uncle Mark in 6 years. We used to be close, he's my late husband's brother. But after my husband died, the family drifted apart. But I remember the divorce, how ugly it got, how Mark's ex tried to destroy him financially and emotionally. I was the one who sat with him through the worst of it. I helped him find a lawyer. I let him stay in my guest room for 3 months. I reminded him he was worth fighting for when he wanted to give up. I sent him one carefully worded email. Subject, guidance needed. Mark, I hope you're well. I'm reaching out not to ask for favors, but for guidance. I'm navigating a difficult employment situation and need advice on proper reporting channels when internal processes seem to have failed. If you have time for a brief call, I'd appreciate your insight. Best. Diane, he responds in 20 minutes. Diane, call me tonight, 8 p.m. I'll be home. At exactly 8 o'clock, I dial his number. Diane. His voice is warm, familiar. It's been too long. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. Tell me what's going on. I give him the abbreviated version. The termination, the shifting accusations, the pattern Evelyn described. When I finish, there's a long silence. Then Mark says quietly, Diane, the board has been concerned about financial irregularities in several departments for the past year. We've suspected something, but suspicion isn't proof. My pulse quickens. So they know? They suspect. Harold's been pushing for an independent review, but the CEO has been resistant. claiming it would undermine department leadership and create a culture of distrust. I close my eyes. Mark, if I have documentation, if I have proof, what do I do with it? You need to handle it perfectly, because the moment you come forward, they're going to try to paint you as a disgruntled former employee looking for revenge. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for my reputation back. I know, which is why you need to be strategic. He pauses. Can you send me a summary of what you have? Nothing confidential, just an overview. I can do that. Do it tonight. I'll get it to the right people, quietly. After we hang up, I sit at my laptop for 2 hours, crafting a one-page summary, facts only. Dates, questions I raised, timeline of my termination, pattern with Evelyn, no accusations, no emotion, just questions that deserve answers. I send it at 10:47 p.m. Mark replies at 11:03, received. This is serious, Diane. Stay ready. My personnel file arrives in the mail 5 days later. The envelope is thin. Too thin for someone with 22 years of service. I open it with shaking hands. Inside is my original hire paperwork. 3 performance reviews from my first 5 years, all positive, and then nothing until this year. And this year there are 2 documents I've never seen before. The first is dated 3 weeks after I questioned the double billing. Behavioral Concern Report. Employee Diane Lawson, reported by Brett Hutchins. Date, March 15th, issue. Employee displayed hostile behavior during team meeting, interrupting colleagues and speaking in a raised, aggressive tone. When redirected, employee became defensive and accusatory. Supervisor attempted to discuss concerns privately, but employee refused to acknowledge inappropriate conduct. I read it 3 times. I was never hostile, I never raised my voice, and Brett never spoke to me privately about any concerns. This is a lie, a complete fabrication. The second document is dated 1 week later. Performance Improvement Discussion. Employee Diane Lawson. Documented by Kelsey Barnes, HR Director. Date March 22nd. Employee was counseled regarding recent performance deficiencies, including missed deadlines, incomplete work product, and resistance to managerial feedback. Employee was advised that improvement was required and that continued performance issues could result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. I feel like I can't breathe. I was never counseled. Kelsey never spoke to me about performance. There were no missed deadlines, no incomplete work. This meeting never happened. Ms. Patel reads both documents with a lawyer's careful eye. Then she looks up at me. These are fabricated, both of them. Can we prove that? We can show they're inconsistent with every other piece of evidence. You have emails proving you met every deadline. You have project completions. You have positive feedback from colleagues. She points to the signature line on the second document. And look at this. This performance discussion allegedly happened on March 22nd. But the termination summary that the CEO approved, it was drafted by Brett on March 18th, 4 days before this coaching allegedly took place. My hands go cold. They wrote my termination before they manufactured the justification. Ms. Patel nods slowly. They decided to fire you the moment you asked that question. Everything else was backfill. Ms. Patel explained something that makes my stomach turn. Most CEOs don't personally investigate every termination. They rely on summaries prepared by department heads and HR. They sign based on trust that the people reporting to them are telling the truth. So Vaughn really might not know? He might not know the details, but he should have asked. That's the failure. I think about Vaughn Mercer in his corner office, expensive suits, always on his phone. He gives speeches about our people being our greatest asset. But he never learned my name. What happens now? I ask. Now we force specifics. We send a formal demand letter requesting all documentation that supports the allegations against you, every email, every complaint, every witness statement. And if they can't provide it, then we've proven the termination was pretextual, based on false allegations. That opens the door to wrongful termination claims. I take a slow breath. Ms. Patel, I don't want money. I want my name back. She meets my eyes. Then we aim for truth, not settlement. But truth is harder. Are you sure? I think about Evelyn, forced to sign an NDA and disappear. I think about whoever might be next. I'm sure. That night, Olivia texts me. Diane, I don't know how to tell you this, but I just asked me about your old login credentials. Brett told them you might have taken confidential files when you left. I stare at the message, feeling the trap closing. They're not just defending their decision. They're building a criminal narrative. The accusation that I might have stolen files is a new level of vicious. I never took anything. They confiscated my laptop before I even left the building. Ms. Patel has me send an immediate formal notice through her office to Kelsey Barnes, HR Director. CC, Legal Department. False allegations. I did not remove any company property, physical or digital, upon my termination. I surrendered all company devices and materials as directed by security. Any allegation to the contrary is false and defamatory. I demand that any and all allegations regarding my conduct be provided to me in writing, with specific details and supporting evidence. All future communications should be directed through my legal counsel. Kelsey's response comes within minutes, faster than any response she's ever sent me. Noted, the company will respond through appropriate channels. Too fast, too smooth. Ms. Patel sees it too. She was waiting for that letter. Someone told her it was coming, which means they're preparing for something. That afternoon, Olivia calls me, her voice barely above a whisper. Diane, I wasn't supposed to hear this, but I was in the copy room when Brett was on a call. He told someone, I don't know who, that you were fired for misappropriating confidential company information. My vision goes dark at the edges. He's telling people I'm a thief. He's telling everyone. It's spreading through the whole department. I hang up and sit in the quiet of my apartment. This isn't termination anymore. This is character assassination. And they're doing it while I can't defend myself, while I have no access, no voice, no platform. Just rumors spreading like poison. I go to the grocery store because I need to eat, even though I have no appetite. In the checkout line, I run into Patricia, the wife of someone who works in operations at my old company. She sees me and her face does this complicated thing. Recognition, then pity, then discomfort. Diane, hi. I heard what happened. I'm sorry about, well, I'm just sorry. She says it like she's offering condolences at a funeral. Thank you, I manage. She leans in slightly, voice dropping. For what it's worth, I never thought you seemed like the type to, well, you know? My blood turns to ice. The type to what? She flushes. Oh, I just met. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. These things usually are. She hurries away before I can respond. I abandon my cart and walk out of the store. In my car, I cry. Hard, ugly, breathless sobs that leave me shaking, because I finally understand. They're not just firing me, they're erasing me, rewriting who I was, turning 22 years of good work into a cautionary tale about a woman who seemed nice, but was secretly unstable, dishonest, dangerous. I can't even buy groceries without someone looking at me like I'm a criminal. When I finally stop crying, I wipe my face and reach for my notebook. The one weapon they don't know I have. I flip through the pages until I find what I need. A chain of budget approvals spanning 6 months, every one signed by Brett, every one countersigned by Kelsey, several stamped with the CEO's office approval seal. A clear trail showing exactly who authorized what and when. I take photos of every page, then I send them to Ms. Patel with one message. Is this enough? She calls me 10 minutes later. Diane, this is more than enough. This is a roadmap. We don't leak to the press. We don't post on social media. We don't make threats. We do exactly what the system is designed for. We file a formal complaint through the company's ethics hotline and compliance office. Ms. Patel drafts it carefully. Subject, financial irregularities and retaliatory termination. 2, Ethics and Compliance Office. I am writing to report concerns regarding potential financial misconduct in the operations department and to document what appears to be retaliatory termination following my attempts to raise these concerns through proper channels. Attached, please find timeline of budget questions raised, documentation of irregular vendor payments, pattern of complaints manufactured post-inquiry, comparison of termination documents showing inconsistencies. I am requesting that the company preserve all relevant records and communications, and that this matter be reviewed by appropriate oversight. It's professional, factual, unemotional, and it's sent to 3 different compliance channels simultaneously, with copies time-stamped and saved. Ms. Patel says, now we wait and watch who scrambles. We don't have to wait long. 2 hours later, I receive an email from someone I've never heard from before. Eleanor Caldwell, Associate General Counsel, subject confidential discussion. Miss Lawson, I would like to schedule a confidential discussion regarding your recent separation from the company. We believe it may be beneficial to both parties to explore a mutual resolution. Please let me know your availability this week. Miss Patel reads it and smiles slightly. They're panicking. How do you know? Because General Counsel doesn't get involved in routine terminations. They only step in when there's legal risk. What do? We take the meeting, but we go in knowing exactly what we want. The confidential discussion happens in a conference room at a law office halfway between my apartment and the company headquarters. Neutral ground. Eleanor Caldwell is there, mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who smiles while calculating exactly how to destroy you. She slides a document across the table. Mutual separation agreement. I don't touch it. Miss Patel picks it up, reads carefully. They're offering you $30,000 in exchange for signing a comprehensive release of all claims, a non-disparagement agreement, and a confidentiality clause that prohibits you from discussing the terms of your employment or separation with anyone. I look at Eleanor. So you're offering me money to be silent? We're offering you a fair resolution that allows both parties to move forward. What about the accusations? The misconduct, language on my unemployment claim, the rumors that I stole files? Eleanor's expression doesn't change. The agreement includes a neutral reference letter and withdrawal of the unemployment contest. But no retraction of the accusations, no acknowledgement that they were false. The agreement speaks for itself. Miss Patel sets the document down. Miss Lawson, what do you want? I look directly at Eleanor Caldwell. I want the truth on record. I want the false allegations retracted. I want to make sure this doesn't happen to someone else. Eleanor folds her hands. Those demands are ambitious. Then I guess we don't have a deal. Miss Patel stands. We'll be in touch. As we're leaving, Eleanor says, Miss Lawson, I should mention that this offer expires Friday. After that, the company's position may become less accommodating. I pause at the door. Miss Caldwell, I should mention that every day you wait, more people start wondering why a routine termination needs the General Counsel's involvement. We walk out. In the parking lot, Miss Patel says, that was good, but they're going to increase pressure now. Let them. She looks at me with something like respect. You're sure about this? I think about Patricia at the grocery store, about Evelyn signing her NDA and disappearing. About whoever might be next. I'm sure. The pressure starts the next day. First, an email from Eleanor. Our offer remains open through Friday. We encourage you to reconsider. Then a voicemail from Kelsey, her voice tight with barely controlled frustration. Diane, this is your last opportunity to resolve this matter with your dignity intact. After Friday, we proceed differently. That word, dignity, ignites something in my chest. I didn't lose my dignity when they fired me. They lost theirs when they lied about why. That evening, Uncle Mark calls. Diane, I can't say much, but something's happening at the board level. Harold just scheduled an emergency finance committee meeting. My heart races. When? Next week. And Diane, they're bringing in outside auditors. After we hang up, I sit with that information. They're panicking. The ethics complaint triggered something they can't control, and now the board is asking questions they can't dodge. Friday comes and goes. I don't sign anything. On Monday morning, I receive a different kind of email. From Vaughn Mercer, CEO, to all staff. Subject: Our values team. As we enter a new quarter, I want to remind everyone of the core values that make our company great. Integrity, accountability, and respect for one another. We hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards, and we expect the same from every member of our team. If you ever have concerns about conduct that doesn't align with our values, please use our confidential reporting channels. Together, we build a culture of trust. Vaughn, I read it twice. He's performing, putting on a show for whoever's watching. Olivia texts me. This email is wild. Brett's been in closed-door meetings all day. People are nervous. The CEO is giving speeches about values, and he still hasn't met me. On Wednesday, Eleanor Caldwell emails again. Subject: in-person resolution discussion. Miss Lawson, given the complexity of the situation, we would like to invite you to an in-person meeting to discuss potential resolution. The CEO will be present, along with board representation, to ensure all concerns are addressed appropriately. Please coordinate with your counsel regarding availability next week. I show the email to Miss Patel. She reads it carefully. Board representation. That's new and significant. What does it mean? It means this is no longer an HR matter. The board is involved, which means Harold Chen is watching. Do we take the meeting? Absolutely, because now we're negotiating from a position of strength. That night, I can barely sleep. This is it. The confrontation I've been building toward. I'm about to walk into a room with the people who tried to erase me. And for the first time since this started, I'm not going to be the one who's powerless. The meeting is scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 p.m. I arrive at the law offices at 1:45, dressed in my best suit, the navy one I wore to every important meeting for the past decade. Armor for a battle I didn't choose but won't run from. Miss Patel meets me in the lobby. Remember, you're here to listen and observe. I'll do most of the talking. If they ask you a direct question, answer honestly and briefly. Don't get emotional. Don't get defensive. I won't. We're escorted to a large conference room on the 14th floor. And there they are. Vaughn Mercer, CEO, sitting at the head of the table in an expensive charcoal suit. His face is calm, pleasant, the expression of a man who's been in 1,000 difficult meetings and knows exactly how to control the room. Brett Hutchins, to Vaughn's right, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looks at me with barely disguised contempt. Kelsey Barnes, across from Brett, watching my hands like I might pull out a weapon. Eleanor Caldwell, the lawyer, at the far end with her leather portfolio and neutral expression. And one person I didn't expect, a man in his 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, sitting quietly in the corner. I recognize him from company newsletters. Harold Chen, board chair. Vaughn stands, extends his hand. I don't take it. He smoothly converts the gesture into a wave toward an empty chair. Diane, please sit. Thank you for coming. First time he's ever said my name, I sit. Miss Patel sits beside me. Vaughn begins with his prepared speech. Diane, I want to start by saying I'm sorry you feel your termination was handled unfairly. That was never our intention. We value all our employees, and when separations happen, it's never easy for anyone involved. Feel like my experience is an opinion, not a fact. That said, we're here today to find a resolution that works for everyone. We believe. Miss Patel interrupts, polite but firm. Mr. Mercer, before we discuss resolution, I'd like to ensure we're all working from the same set of facts. She slides a folder across the table. Inside is my documentation timeline. Dates, emails, budget questions, the manufactured complaints, the termination documents. This is the documented record of what actually happened. Vaughn glances at it, then looks at Brett. Brett, you prepared the performance summary that I approved. Walk me through your concerns. Brett straightens, confident. Diane had become increasingly difficult to work with over the past several months. She questioned every decision, interrupted meetings, created tension with colleagues. When I tried to address it, she became defensive and hostile. Miss Patel's voice is soft as silk. Can you provide a single written warning, signed by Ms. Lawson, acknowledging this behavior? Brett's jaw tightens. We handled performance issues verbally, as is standard for management. Interesting, Ms. Patel says. Because according to the company's own HR manual, employees must receive written documentation of performance concerns before termination. Can you show us those documents? Kelsey jumps in, voice sharp. We addressed concerns in real time. Formal write-ups aren't always necessary when issues are actively being managed. Ms. Patel nods slowly. How convenient. And Mr. Mercer, when you approved this termination, did you ask to see any of this documentation? For the first time, Vaughn's expression flickers. He looks at the timeline in front of him. Really looks at it. This is the first time I've seen any of this detail, he says slowly. Vaughn turns to Brett. Your summary said Diane refused direction and created a hostile environment. It said there had been multiple documented incidents. There were, Brett says, but his voice has lost its certainty. Ms. Patel asks the question that changes everything. Mr. Hutchins, can you provide documentation of even one incident where Miss Lawson was formally warned about her behavior, in writing, with her signature acknowledging the discussion? Silence. Brett's face is reddening. I managed the situation appropriately. I don't need to document every conversation. But you documented her termination quite thoroughly, Ms. Patel observes. In fact, according to these dates, You drafted the termination summary on March 18th, but the alleged performance coaching session with HR wasn't documented until March 22nd, 4 days later. She pauses, letting that sink in. So you decided to fire Miss Lawson before you even manufactured the justification. Kelsey's voice is defensive now. That's not what happened. We were documenting an ongoing pattern of behavior that was never once mentioned to Ms. Lawson until after she questioned an invoice discrepancy. Vaughn's eyes are sharp now, focused. He's no longer performing. Kelsey, why wasn't this documented through proper progressive discipline? We handled it according to department standards. Our company has written standards. Did you follow them? Kelsey doesn't answer. Vaughn looks at the timeline again, at the budget questions, at the vendor names. Something shifts in his face. Brett, these budget approvals all have your signature. What's VentureLink Consulting? A vendor we use for project management support. And these invoices that are flagged as duplicates? Brett's confident mask is cracking. Diane misunderstood the billing structure. Did she? Because it looks like she was doing exactly what we hired her to do, ensuring our budget was accurate before the audit. Then Harold Chen speaks for the first time. His voice is quiet, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its calm. I think this is an appropriate time to pause and let everyone know that the Finance Committee has been conducting its own review. Every person at the table goes still. Harold continues. We've been concerned about expenditure patterns in several departments. When we received the ethics complaint from Miss Lawson, along with supporting documentation, we accelerated our timeline. He looks directly at Brett. Mr. Hutchins, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want to remind you that providing false information to the board carries serious consequences. Brett's face is pale now. What is your relationship to the principal owner of VentureLink Consulting? The room holds its breath. The silence stretches for 5 seconds. 10. 15. Brett opens his mouth, closes it. Finally, he's my brother-in-law. The conference room erupts in a different kind of energy, not loud, but seismic, like the foundation of a building shifting. Vaughn's face drains of color. You failed to disclose a conflict of interest with a vendor receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars in contracts. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? Harold's voice is steel wrapped in silk. Eleanor Caldwell, the lawyer, is typing rapidly on her laptop. Legal exposure, her fingers seem to say with every keystroke. Kelsey looks like she wants to disappear through the floor. And I sit there, watching it all unfold. This isn't about me anymore. This is about a financial scandal they've been hiding. And I was the loose thread that could unravel it all. Harold turns to me for the first time. Miss Lawson, on March 12th, you flagged a duplicate invoice during audit preparation. Can you walk us through what you found? My voice is steady. The invoice was for project management services from VentureLink. 2 separate invoices, 2 weeks apart, for identical deliverables on the same project. When I asked for clarification, I was told it was a billing error and that it would be corrected. But it wasn't corrected. Known fact, when I checked the following week, both invoices had been paid. Harold makes a note. And what happened after you raised this concern? Within 2 weeks, I was terminated. Harold looks at Brett, then at Kelsey, then at Vaughn. That's not a coincidence. That's retaliation. Vaughn tries to salvage something. We didn't know about the vendor relationship. This is the first I'm hearing. But you did know someone raised a concern about financial irregularities, and instead of investigating, you signed a termination based on vague accusations of attitude problems. Harold stands. We're going to take a brief recess. Mr. Mercer, Ms. Barnes, Mr. Hutchins. I need to speak with you privately. Miss Lawson, Miss Patel, please wait here. They file out. The door closes. Miss Patel looks at me, and for the first time, she's smiling. You did it. I don't feel triumphant. I feel exhausted. What happens now? Now they decide how much they're willing to admit to make this go away. 20 minutes later, the door opens. Only Harold and Eleanor return. Harold sits across from me. Miss Lawson, the board is ordering an immediate independent review of all financial transactions in the operations department. Hutchins has been placed on administrative leave, pending the outcome. My breath catches. Ms. Barnes will be providing all communications related to your termination. No deletions, no omissions. Eleanor adds, We would like to discuss a comprehensive resolution that addresses your concerns. Harold leans forward. What outcome do you want? For the first time in this entire nightmare, someone is actually asking me what I want. My voice doesn't shake. I want the false allegations retracted. I want my personnel file corrected. I want a neutral reference letter. And I want mandatory training on retaliation and proper termination procedures so this doesn't happen to anyone else. Harold nods. Those terms seem reasonable. Eleanor looks less pleased, but she's taking notes. And Mr. Mercer? I ask. Does he know what he approved when he signed my termination? Harold's expression is unreadable. He's learning. They want me to sign a settlement agreement right there. Miss Patel won't let that happen. We need time to review any proposal carefully. We'll respond within 48 hours. We leave the building, and I feel like I can breathe for the first time in weeks, but it's not over yet. That night, Olivia texts. Brett's office is being cleared out. Security escorted him out an hour ago. Everyone's freaking out. The next morning, Eleanor emails a revised settlement proposal. It includes full retraction of misconduct language, correction of personnel file removing false complaints, neutral reference letter, settlement payment covering legal fees and lost wages, mandatory anti-retaliation training for all managers, commitment to policy review on termination procedures. The only catch, mutual non-disparagement and confidentiality about settlement terms. Miss Patel reads it carefully. This is a good offer, better than most, but there's one thing missing. What? An admission that they were wrong. I think about that. Would we get that in court? Maybe. Maybe not. And it would take years. I look at the offer again. Everything I asked for is there. My name is cleared. The policies will change. Future employees will be protected. The only thing I don't get is the satisfaction of hearing them say, we were wrong. But maybe that's not what matters most. I want one addition, I tell Miss Patel. A statement that can go in my file saying the termination was without cause and that I left in good standing. She nods. I'll push for that. She does. They agree. On Friday, I sign the settlement. I don't return to the company. I don't need to. The settlement is enough to cover my expenses while I find something new, something better. But the real victory comes 3 weeks later. Olivia calls me, voice excited. Diane, you won't believe this. The audit results came back. And Brett was embezzling. VentureLink was a shell company. He was billing fake services and splitting the money with his brother-in-law. Over 4 years, they stole almost $400,000. My hand covers my mouth. The board fired him immediately. For cause, no severance, and they're pursuing criminal charges. And Kelsey? She resigned to pursue other opportunities. But everyone knows she helped cover it up. What about Vaughn? Olivia pauses. He's still CEO. But there's a new layer of board oversight now. Every termination has to be reviewed by committee. Every vendor relationship has to be disclosed. Every complaint has to be documented properly. She's quiet for a moment. They're calling it the Lawson Protocols. Someone in HR let it slip. I close my eyes. I didn't get my job back. I didn't get an apology from the CEO. But I got something better. I got the truth on record. And I made sure no one else would go through what I did. A month after the settlement, I get a LinkedIn message from someone I don't know. Miss Lawson, my name is Catherine Price. I was terminated from a different company last year under similar circumstances. I saw your story mentioned in a board governance article. Would you be willing to talk? I'm trying to figure out how to fight back. I stare at the message for a long time. Then I reply, yes, here's my number. Call me anytime. We talk for an hour. I walk her through what I did, the documentation, the attorney, the ethics complaint, the patience required to let the process work. At the end, she says, thank you. I was starting to think I was crazy. You're not crazy. And you're not alone. After we hang up, I realize something. This is what matters. Not revenge, not seeing people suffer, but making sure the system works the way it's supposed to, and helping others who are where I was. I start getting more messages. More calls. Women, it's mostly women, who were terminated after raising concerns, who were labeled difficult or not a team player when they asked questions. I help where I can. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's connecting them with Miss Patel or other employment attorneys. Sometimes it's just telling them they're right to fight. I become a person who refused to disappear. 6 months after my termination, I get an email that surprises me. From Vaughn Mercer, subject personal note. Diane, I wanted to reach out personally to say something that I should have said months ago. I was wrong. I signed your termination without doing my due diligence. I trusted a summary without verifying the facts. I failed in my responsibility to ensure that every employee, including you, was treated fairly. The audit and investigation that followed your departure revealed serious problems that I should have caught earlier. Problems that you tried to flag. I can't undo what happened to you. But I want you to know that we've implemented significant changes because of what we learned from your case. And I personally review every termination now. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that your courage made a difference. Vaughn, I read it 3 times. It's not a legal document. It's not required by the settlement. It's just a man admitting he was wrong. I forward it to Ms. Patel. She replies, "That's rare." I don't respond to Vaughn's email. Not because I'm angry, because there's nothing left to say. He learned what he needed to learn, and I moved on. It's been a year now. I'm working for a different company, smaller, but more transparent. They hired me specifically because of my experience with compliance and my willingness to ask hard questions. On my first day, the CEO shook my hand and said, "We hired you because you're not afraid to tell us when something's wrong." That's what we need. It felt like coming home. I still keep a notebook. Old habits die hard. But now it's not because I'm afraid. It's because I'm prepared. Last week I got a message from Evelyn, the woman who was fired 3 years before me. "Diane, I heard what you did. I wish I'd had your courage, but I'm so glad you fought." I replied, "You had the courage. You survived. That counts too. Because that's what I've learned. Survival is its own kind of victory. But changing the system, that's immortality." Epilogue. My name is Diane Lawson. I'm 53 years old. A year ago, I was fired by a CEO who never met me. They thought I was powerless because I was older, quiet, and alone. They thought wrong, because quiet people keep records. And the right people are always watching. If you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or erased at work, I want you to know something. You are not crazy. You are not difficult. You are not the problem. And you don't have to accept their story as the truth. Document everything. Find the right people and fight for what's right. Not because revenge feels good, but because the truth matters. And you matter. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and if you've ever had to stand up to workplace injustice. I read every single one. Until next time, remember, the quiet ones are often the strongest.